All right, guys, good morning. This is Bill. Welcome to Tuesday Notary Titans. My name is Bill Soroka. I'm the founder of NotaryCoach.com and the Sign and Thrive Notary Training Course and Community. I am live in Helena right now at the Ron Symposium for the state of Montana. So I'm only going to be here kind of quiet in the background. I'll be making sure the technology works right. And our co-hosts, Carol Ray, founder of Notary to Pro, and Laura Buer, founder of CoachMeLaura.com, are really going to be leading the questions today. Carol, welcome. Thank you so much for spending so much of your time with us. What are you excited about this week? You
always put me on the spot, don't you?
You have been prepared the last 2 weeks. But
I know, but yeah, this has been a tough week. It's the end of the month, so yeah. I'll tell you, what I am excited about. I cannot believe how many of the new graduates are going out and doing their first signings within days of graduating. The work is out there, guys. Go get it. It is busy. It is really busy. So yeah, that I'm excited about.
This is probably the busiest I've ever seen too. I agree.
I know.
Laura, welcome. I see that you logged on. What are you excited about this week? What? Are you doing it on purpose? Does that sound like a mouse?
Are you imitating Minnie Mouse? There's something wrong with your sound.
Okay, I think that might be technical difficulties. Or she has the new Disneyland app on her phone. Laura, I have no idea what you're saying, but it sounds adorable.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, you come back in. Okay. And we did not plan for that. So, but that's perfect because, Carol, we have a couple of great stories that you're going to share with the group anyway, right?
I do, yeah. This is from, well, I have two of them here. I hope I get a chance to just at least do these two. They're a little bit lengthy, but I think everybody's going to get a big kick out of these. Do you want me to go ahead and start this?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay. All right. So I have two stories that were sent to me by Beth Hathoot. I think she's here. I'm not sure. Beth, are you there? I thought I saw her, but okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. So I'm about to read the first of your two stories, which I got such a big kick out of. Okay, she said, I had a refi signing this morning at 8:30 a.m. The borrowers were older, 86 and 84-year-old couple. They were in a bit of a hurry because he had someplace to be. He said that even at his age, he still works 3 days a week. Oh, I said, what do you do? His wife got up from the table and started to walk into the kitchen, calling back over her left shoulder. She said, he's a pole dancer. Of course, I had a shocked look on my face and said, what? Really? Now, you're not just messing with me, are you? He said, no, 3 days a week, I teach a class in pole dancing. Okay, so you're not just a pole dancer, but you're a pole dancer instructor, I said. This whole time, he has a completely straight face with the faintest glimmer of agitation that I would be questioning him about the validity of his story. Then he starts to smile just a little and says, I go to the seniors rec center and teach pole dancing to a bunch of seniors. I just stared at him, not knowing really what to say. He continued. He said, we have 12 floor-to-ceiling poles for the seniors in the class to hold on to while they're doing simple exercises so they can get the benefit of weight-bearing exercises and not just sitting in a chair. We call ourselves the SPD group, Senior Pole Dancers. Ha, ha, ha. I love it, she said. I thought that was one of the cutest stories I've ever heard. Beth, you there?
Yes, ma'am, I am here.
Yeah, that was really cute. I really enjoyed that. And he's in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, Sun City.
Okay, and then I have another story. Does anybody have a question of Beth? Okay, this one's really something. Okay, it's a little lengthy, but it'll go quick. This was the strangest week I think I ever had, she said. And it didn't get really interesting until Friday. So Monday was busy, Tuesday, slow, Wednesday, busy again, Thursday, hair on fire, Friday, fire drill all day long. The very last appointment on Friday was at 7:30 p.m. Got set up at the table, and the husband comes into the room with a gigantic glass of iced tea and placed it right in the middle of the table between all three of us. My first thought was that one of us was going to knock over that glass of tea. The wife asked me if I wanted some water or tea, and I explained, here's my opportunity, she said, that I cannot be trusted with an open container around the documents and that I would surely spill it. My subtle hint went unnoticed except for a small chuckle. So the very first, for the first little bit, I worked around it, but I was really starting to get nervous. I left their document copies in my bag for now, and my bag was on the left of me at my feet on the floor, and I began again. So somewhere just about the fifth document, I explained that the iced tea glass was really making it hard for me to focus on the job at hand and suggested that it be removed until I finished. Heck no, not the direct quote, barked the husband. It'll be fine. You're just a nervous Nelly. Okay, wow, I haven't heard that term in a while. We proceeded. Sure enough, the tea was knocked over by the wife right in my direction, all over the documents on the table, onto me, my slacks, and, you guessed it, into my bag on the floor, where she had the spare documents. As us Italians would say, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. That was a nice way for us to cuss. So moving past the cleanup, I said in my best customer service voice, no problem. I have a printer in my car and I can reprint the documents. Just give me a little bit and I'll be back and we can start again. So fast forward to the car. It's getting dark, so I break out my little emergency lantern. Yes, I am a prepper, LOL. Fire up the laptop. What the what? It's doing one of those Windows updates, 26%. And if you guys have been through window updates, oh my God, they can took all night the other night for mine. Okay, so while I'm waiting to try to download the docs onto my phone, got it, sort of. The entire file did not download. Tried again. Nope, 112 pages out of 144. Check the laptop. Again, 27%. Windows downloaded and no obvious way to cancel it. By this time, 20 minutes has gone by. Given another 20 minutes, I could have been gone home, reprinted, returned without the anxiety. Believe me, I was cussing like a sailor at the end of this and not like an Italian. Moral of the story, and this is what everybody's going to appreciate because it will happen to you. You can believe you have a backup plan to your backup plan to your original plan, but Murphy's Law will always intervene and throw you off your game. Just roll with the punches and make friends with Murphy. And by the way, Saturday was my revenge. One signing and prior evening docs had been dropped at title, only 3 blocks from the title office to drop the docs. Sweet. We've all been there. If you've been in this business for a while, that's why I got such a kick. Murphy, right on your right shoulder. He just sort of rides right there.
Yeah, I love that. You got to make friends with Murphy because he's going to be around when you least expect it, right, Laura?
Oh, God.
Are you off the helium now?
Is she there?
Laura, are you with us?
I wonder what happened.
I don't know. Well, Carol, it looks like it's just going to be mostly you until Laura jumps on. So
that's okay. I'm feeling like a ham this morning.
You're on it. So let's go ahead and we'll jump right into the questions. Let me start sharing the screen here. There we go. All right. Lori says,
is she even on here somewhere? Or?
Oh, I doubt. It's hard to say. So Lori says, how do you know that this Tuesday, as in today, is the last day to sign a refinance? The last day to fund is Monday, September 30th. Please explain.
Okay.
Reading your message made me realize I need a better understanding of how to manage my schedule better. So Carol, can you talk a little bit about how?
Oh, yeah. And this is important. And I think it's very important for everybody to know how to determine the rescission date, the end of the rescission period, and not just go by these charts. We had I think it was Notary Rotary had a chart one year that was wrong. And it was a nightmare for a lot of people. You never count the day of the signing. That's not part of your rescission time. So if they sign today, which is the 24th, right? The 24th does not count toward the rescission period. The 25th, which is Wednesday, 26th, which is Thursday, and 25th, which is Friday, makes the end of the rescission period Friday, the 20, what did I say? 7th. You've got Saturday, which is a business day, and it counts. They can actually fund if they were working that day, but normally they don't. So Monday would be funding day, but the end of the rescission would be the end of the 3 business days that follow the signing. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be the 3 business days following the signing if it's signed today. If it's signed tomorrow, you can still count Saturday. Saturday would be the end of the rescission period because they do consider Saturday to be a business day. You do not include Sundays and you do not include holidays.
Yeah, and I think it's real important here too, guys, is to what Carol just described is calculating the rescission date. But when you're at the end of the month and you want to know when the last day, when it's going to be crazy busy for you on refinances, you kind of use the same methodology,
Backwards.
but yeah, a little bit backwards. And just know that most banks are not going to be doing fundings. You know, your loan officers, the staff are not going to be in banks on Saturdays funding loans. There are exceptions to that, but for the most part, it's going to be on a business day, Monday through Friday. So just the way this works out, because there's a mandatory rescission, nobody's going to be working on Saturday, so they're going to fund loan signed today on Monday. That's how that happens. All right, Caitlin says, I have seen ads looking for mobile notaries and loan signing agents. Carol, I put this one in here for you today. I believe this is for a larger organization who then contracts out to the agents. They find the clients and assign or offer out to the agents they have contracted in the area. Is this a good way to get started in the market, or would you advise against it?
Is
Take it away,
Caitlin
Carol.
on the line right now?
Caitlin, I don't know if you're on the line right now.
Okay, this is a big deal. This is a warning to everybody out there, and pass it around. These ads appear on Indeed, Monster, and Glassdoor. This is a couple that I've known about for several years now that have been more than ripping people off. They have been doing, and Bill, you and I have talked about exposing and working on this, and I actually did get somebody wrote me a letter the other day, and we're real close. This is a couple who operate under different names. At one point in time, I was called and told that they were operating as real notary pros. They advertise that they have people in your neighborhood. They have all these companies that are desperate for signing agents. So come be a signing agent. We'll teach you what to do, and you can make a lot of money. And it's all in your own area. And I have seen so many people over the last few years that since 2013 have been absolutely devastated. They even get to the point where they charge them for something they're not going to get. There's no course that goes with it. They have even told some of the older ladies that I have talked to that have come into this business thinking that they were going to be able to do this and make a lot of money, that they didn't have their commission, and they said, don't worry about it. You send us $300, we're going to take care of getting your commission. They don't even get their commission. obviously they get nothing. And everybody has to pass this on. These people, I mean, I can't say too much because then I might get myself in trouble. But it's really important. If anybody ever says anything about these ads that you've seen, report them to somebody. Do something. Call me, call Bill, because they're terrible people.
Yeah, I knew I could count on you to really drive that one home, Carol. Thank you. Chris says, I know you can't certify a copy of vital records like a birth certificate, but you can notarize a signature using an attached certificate on a statement that he claims his birth certificate is a true copy. If so, does the notary make the copy, or does he bring the copy with him and the actual birth certificate for a comparison? Laura, can you help us out on that one?
She back?
Yeah, I got a message that said she was back.
Good.
Laura, are you there? I don't hear her. So we'll come back to that one, Doris. That's a good Laura question. Kara says, how do you determine your base rates, Carol?
They're talking about general notary work, I'm sure probably. That would be best for Laura, because I didn't do general notary work.
I don't think this is actually, Carol. I think she's asking about signing agent rates.
Oh, for signing agent rates?
Yeah. We get this about probably 8 different emails.
Yeah, everybody wants to know this. First of all, it depends very much on your training. It depends on how much experience you have. If there's no experience, you probably are going to take less just to get some experience. And I've said lately that I backed out. I've changed my mind 180 degrees about when you're brand new, taking the lowball stuff just to get some experience. I think one good way is to find people that are in your area. Maybe go to Notary Rotary and find other notaries. See if they advertise on their websites what they're charging. That might be a fairly good way. Most companies, they're not going to call you and ask you how much you charge to do this. They're going to tell you how much they're paying, and you have to use your own good sense of judgment to determine whether you want to do that, if it's worth doing the work for what they're offering you. You know, if they're offering you something that is 150 pages, 60 miles from home, and you have to fax back everything, and they're offering you $40. Come on, it's costing you money. So you have to use your own good common sense.
Julia says, is it a good option to keep the LLC on my notary business, or the bonds and E&O insurance enough to cover liability?
Do you want me to answer? I don't know if...
Yeah,
okay.
This is pretty much all you today.
This is an easy one, because I get this question all of the time. The one thing I do suggest to people is they always get their EIN number, which is so easy. It's just on the irs.gov website. It's free. They usually get it within a day or so. And that's one thing you do need to do, so you don't expose your social security number to all of these people, all these companies. But as far as LLCs and what you need to do business-wise, you need to get professional advice. Somebody needs to know what your situation is, how much money you earn, what your personal financial situation is, to give you that kind of advice. I would never presume to give people that advice.
Yeah, I totally agree. You need to talk to either a CPA or an attorney to figure out for your situation, your state, and your business. One thing I will offer is that being an LLC or incorporating any kind of business is really to serve 2 purposes: protect your assets and tax efficiency. It is not used to legitimize a business. So a lot of new notaries will think that they have to get an LLC or a corporation because that makes them legit. And that's not the way this works. It only serves those 2 purposes. And the one thing that I would offer is that you do not have a business until you sell something or you provide a service. So don't spend too much money, too much energy in the beginning doing all this stuff before you get training and get customers. Patricia says, oh, this is a great question for Laura. Laura, are you on yet? She said she was going to try again.
Sound. Hello?
Hi, Laura. Laura?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, good.
Okay. All right. Am I regular?
Hi. You are. Your Minnie Mouse voice has gone away. We have two great questions for you. So
Okay.
I'm going to go backwards here. Laura says, remember this one?
Yes.
Can you
And
address that?
so, first of all, we are not saying anything about the copy. So we don't need to make the copy. We don't need to verify the copy. What we are doing is certifying he's the guy that signed the statement about his copy. So the only thing we're focused on is identifying this signer and making sure he's the guy that signed it. The content of that document is all on him.
Short and sweet. I love it. Let me just mute a few people here. We got some background noise going on. All right. And then Patricia says, how much do you make or charge for notary work and adoptions? I know, Laura, you just did a training on adoptions that's now in the Laura Viewer Presents library. Can you ballpark that for us?
You know, it's really difficult to do that because I may work with one family and that may spread out over, you know, a couple of months, and that may have different types of numbers of notarizations I perform. So for instance, I may go to their home on an evening and I may perform 30 or 40 notarizations for them at that one time. And if I know that they're working with me beyond that, I tend to cut a deal and I start looking at my fee structure more as what is my time involved, my hourly rate that I would like to charge for this rather than $15 for each one. If it's just somebody who needed a few extras done because something got rejected or their notary's commission had expired, then I'm going to charge the travel plus the 15 for each one. Remember, my 15 is for the state of California. So Patricia, I don't know what state you're in. So I'm charging a travel fee plus the maximum I'm allowed to charge. But when I do these larger jobs, and I just did one, actually wasn't for adoptions. It was actually for a lawsuit regarding somebody who's, you know, developed cancer. And I had to sit down and do 37 in one shot, 37 affidavits. And you know what? I did not charge them $15 for every single one. I looked at how long it was taking me to do it. And then I said, okay, this is what I think is fair for me to make on this job. So the nice thing is you have a lot of opportunity to decide what it is you're going to do, and you're not tied in. One time I may do a per notarization and travel. Another time I say, I'm not going to charge you travel. I'm going to sit here, see how long it takes me to do it, and I'll base my fee on that.
Wonderful. He says, what amount of fee do I put in the journal when doing loan signings or estate docs, which have a higher than the $10 fee that Arizona allows? Laura, can you take that one?
Sure. So, you know, here's the deal. The journal is meant to be documentation of what was charged to the signer. And so here's what I do. It's not your bookkeeping software. So what I do is I start putting, if it was Arizona, $10, $10, $10 for each one until I use up all the money that I was paid that they would have been charged for my services. And then once I reach that level, I go to 0, 0, 0, 0. That helps me stay consistent with what I am tracking in my Notary Assist software. You don't have to do that. The Secretary of State is not telling you, you know, how to fill that out, other than you may not put more than the maximum allowed in any given one. Some notaries in the additional information or notes will put loan signing and, you know, $100 or whatever it happens to be. And that may be something, but there's no law that tells you how to handle that. So you want to address it consistently, is what I would tell you. Gosh darn it. Consistently, and something that makes sense for you.
Perfect.
And then the second part of his question is, can he use ditto marks for sections that are the same when the husband and wife? You know what? That's state specific. In my state, the answer is no. But in other states, and I believe Arizona is a state where you can actually group when you're taking care of people at the same time. Bill, can you talk about how you do the journal?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can group loan signings into one journal entry if we want, but still ditto marks are not acceptable here. So there is an expectation that you write out all of the information, because the back end of this, guys, is if somebody, you know, gets asked for an audit or asked the Secretary of State to see a line item, they get to see just that one line item for whatever document or set of documents that was. So if they chose the one that has ditto marks, they're not going to be able to see the line above to know what that ditto mark is. All right, Jacqueline says, as a mobile loan signing agent with ambitions to capitalize on the notary market, do I need to establish a separate business account from my private bank account to include an EIN? There are expenses required to support the daily business, not to mention website fees, annual renewals, insurance, the LBP training and library, etc. So I think that's a great question. Carol, you want to jump in and talk about whether or not a notary should have a separate business account versus their personal checking account?
Well, that's a very personal thing. You can decide for yourself, but basically, if you keep accounting methods separate, you don't have to necessarily keep the bank account separate. And I tell a lot of people that they don't establish businesses, they don't do a DBA, they don't create a corporation. For years and years and years, I was paid Carol Ray. They didn't pay my domain name, which was iSignDocs, and I commingled my funds because I kept a very strict accounting. We had our personal expenses and we had our expenses on the business, and that's all really that mattered. That's how we did our taxes. But as I've said before, I think it's an individual thing. Depends on so much, every aspect of what you do in your business life and your personal life. Get advice if you're not sure. But I will tell you that it worked for us for years. People paid me. That's money that I earned. It was commingled with my funds, but we always kept track of the accounting part of it and the expenses.
Yeah, and for me, I don't have that attention to detail, and I still have boxes of receipts from 2002. So when I talk to my CPA, and again, you want to get your own advice for your own state, your own situation, but he said if I have a separate business account or a separate business credit card, even if it wasn't in the company's name, it's just one card that I use for business stuff only, then I could stop saving receipts, because then they assume that all of those expenses are business expenses if they run through that account. As soon as I heard that, I went out and got a business account, and that has freed up my mind space so much. So that's what I did. Laura, what about you? What do you do?
Now, I have a separate business account, and I do have a business name, and I developed a business name really right at the beginning. And you cannot cash checks in your personal account when they're made out to your business name. So if you are using your business name and letting people write checks to that name, you will need a business account in order to cash them. That's my first part. My second part is I was audited by the IRS back in 2006 or 7. Actually, it was 2008, 4, 6, and 7. And I got to tell you, I think the reason I came through so easily is that I had clear records that were business related, very separate from my personal ones.
Beautiful. And we've got Sherry's been trying to reach you to ask you a question, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it here. Sherry says, on trust work, if one of the assets is a property in a state other than where the signing is taking place, do I use the other state's rules for witnesses, or the state where I'm located notarizing the trust?
All right, so the notarization itself is based on the state that you're in. So if you're notarizing in California and you're notarizing for a property that is in Arizona, the rules for California are what apply, and Arizona is supposed to accept my notarization and whatever my process is, as long as I did it legally in my own state. Now, when it comes to witnessing, of course, most of us are not in a witnessing state. There's very few that are. And I will tell you that if I am told that this property is in a state that requires a witness on the deed in order to be recorded, I'm going to take care of that and make sure it happens, even though that wasn't a requirement for my own state.
Beautiful. Susan says, how do you obtain a copy of the client's ID if you're not allowed to use an iPhone to take a copy? Carol, can you help?
I just tell my students that they need to ask for IDs when they confirm the appointment, and make sure that people make their copies themselves. If they're unable to do that, if they can take them with their phone and send them direct to title,
Yeah.
that's fine. If not, they're going to have to find a way to do it. I mean, people do have these scanners, I guess, that are safe for the phone. I'm not familiar with which ones are the best, but never take it with your phone. Make sure that the borrowers have it for you if you can.
Laura, any further suggestions?
Now, I'm with Carol. I never use my phone, but if they want to use their own phone, email it to me and I can print it for them, or they can email it for themselves to print it for them. Or if neither one of those options work, I give them the phone number and say, look, you need to call and you need to get this to them. And usually there is information about what to do if there's no IDs available. And many times I do get the instructions that say, don't use your iPhone. If they don't have it, here's the number, they need to get it forwarded.
Perfect. Casey says, how would you correct a faded signature on a power of attorney in the state of Texas? Laura, can you offer any insight?
Well, I'm not sure what's meant by correct a faded signature. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, maybe we should just talk about corrections in general.
Yeah, so corrections can be made in most states. And in most states, I don't know, there's about 10 or 12 that actually have specific instructions about how you should correct it. And then the rest of the states just don't really address it. So best practice would be make sure you have the signer right there in front of you. Make sure that they initial whatever it is they're fixing. Make sure that you note it in your journal if this was a notarized document, and in this case it would be a power of attorney, it is, so that you have a note in your book about what was corrected. Those are the things you would want to employ if you were going to correct something.
Beautiful, thank you. Angelica says, what is the best way to approach a situation where the signer will not answer or confirm a time to meet? I received the order, made multiple attempts to reach the signer with no luck. The signing company told me that I should show up to their home anyway. Any advice? Carol, what do you think?
Yeah, don't do it. Too many times they want you to do whatever. They don't want you to call the people before you show up. You can't get them set with a time, but they tell you go there anyway. And these are the nightmare situations where you go through all of this, print the docs, you show up, and either nobody's there or they've changed their mind. You always want to get confirmation before you go, because I can tell you right now, most of the time, they're not going to pay you. You're going to go through all of this. Any company that would tell you to go to a signing when you can't even get a hold of the people, or they refuse to set a time with you, I wouldn't. Did I get muted?
Sorry, that was me. I accidentally muted you and I meant to unmute myself. Laura, what do you think?
You know, in this particular question, it's not that they can't get a hold of them, it's that they're having a hard time nailing down a time when it's going to be good for them to come. And I would go back to my, my signing company. And first of all, if it's a signing company that I do business with regularly, I would go, because I have a trust with that signing company that if I go, they're going to pay me. So that I wouldn't do it with a company that I haven't done business with yet. I'm a little bit concerned about that. If it's right in my area, I probably would go as well, because it didn't take that much for me to go over there. If I can't get a hold of anybody at all, that's a different story. But if I can at least talk with them, and you know what, and if they can't confirm a time to meet, I might be talking to them a little bit more to say, okay, what's the deal? Is it today's the problem? Is it because your husband's out of town? I mean, if they're not able to meet, if I could get them to tell me why, maybe then we can resolve the issue better than me just going over there when they haven't told me when it's okay to come over there.
I think that's an important distinction because I think for me, working on a relationship basis, right? My clients are usually escrow direct, but even the signing companies, we have an arrangement with, so I have other people I can communicate with if the borrower is non-responsive. But what I really, in my experience, what I've found is a lot of times borrowers give the number that they never will answer to the lenders. So a lot of times we're calling landlines that nobody ever checks messages for, because that's where all the sales calls go. So I will check the documents on the 1003. There's usually title or closing documents that will have a special phone number, or even lender documents that might have a work phone or a cell phone number that is different than the number that a signing company had given me, because they might just pull that off at one place in the application. So I do a little more due diligence. But ultimately, if I'm hired to be somewhere at a certain time, then I show up at that time. That's my own personal policy. And some people not paid me for that? They've tried, but I don't work with companies that don't pay me when I show up to do my job.
I want to clarify something.
Sure.
Because the three of us, as much alike as we are, please, there's a difference between us, okay? And I want people to understand that I come from the perspective of training new people. I work with new signing agents. These are people that are not working direct with title and escrow. They'd love to. These are not people that have been in the business like you and I have, Laura, for many years, and we've established our customers. So when I answer something like that, I'm in the mindset of the new people that are out there. And I have to keep that in mind when I'm giving advice to people. So I want everybody out there to understand when I say that, it really comes from the perspective of knowing that a lot of you have not established that customer base where you've got these wonderful relationships. And of course, when I was in the business and I worked with companies for many years and I got to trust them and know them, then that's not something that I would do. But I just want from the perspective of the new people that are so curious and they're asking questions and they're not sure how to handle these situations. We come from two different areas. And so I'm giving advice from the perspective of the newbies that are just trying to find their way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And here's what I would offer. I think that we should operate from the assumption that the signing is going to take place. So I think if we operate and that's like the benefit of the doubt stuff, right? Always keep the big picture in mind. Assume that somebody wants to sign these papers. So if we can't get a hold of them, there's probably a mistake or an error some way, or a wrong phone number or something along those lines. So before you just walk away from it, dive in, become MacGyver with this stuff. You call your resources, figure it out. You have a team. You are in one of the most supported roles in the entire industry. We have the closing agents, we have the signing companies, you have your coaches, your mentors, you have other notaries, you have all that good stuff. So just do your due diligence to find the phone number so you can make that confirmation and show up. Do everything that you can, because it's probably just a mistake or an error. Okay, let's look at Richard. A mortgage company wanted me to do a signing at a law office in Philadelphia. Oh, we already talked about that last time, so I'm going to skip that one. All right, this is from Dwayne. I've seen other notaries say they charge up to $250 for a single power of attorney. Granted, it was last minute and maybe 30 to 40 miles away. I'm not asking for what some charges for a job, since I learned this is taboo. I've heard people say, charge what you think you're worth. Well, I think I'm worth a lot. My issue is, where is the line in charging what you're worth and taking advantage of someone? So besides mileage and notarization, what are people charging to reach the $100 plus mark? I want to run a business with integrity and honesty, but I also don't want to be undervaluing myself. This is just for general notary work. So Laura, can you take that one?
Yeah, since there's no regulation around this other than the maximum for the Notarial Act itself, there are a lot of factors that I take into consideration. One of those is how far do I need to go? And of course, we have traffic issues in California like you can't believe. So, at one time of the day, it might be just fine for me to go 30 miles somewhere and it takes me 30 minutes. That might be a late evening appointment. Another time, that same 30 miles could take me 2 hours to get to. So that's going to be in consideration. The other consideration is going to be, what are the documents? Is it just one that I'm driving to get to, or do I have many? So every job for me is, I'm evaluating all the different aspects of what it costs me to take care of that customer. And how much of my knowledge do they need from me? I'm not an attorney, but sometimes I'm skating pretty close as I offer where they can get the information, and as they're filling out the document, because they should have done it before I got there. There are many times where I'm utilized and I'm having to hook them up with other resources as well. Then I might be looking at a higher fee. Other times I'm just there and I'm notarizing. It's quick and easy. And why should I charge more than the going rate plus my travel fee to get there? So I don't think that, I think the integrity part comes with what is comfortable for you. If I heard somebody tell me, hey, I got $250 for a document to be notarized, I would not feel good about that. I think that is taking advantage. Of course, I may not know all their details. I just think that you need to not look to the outside. You need to look to what your business is about and what you're trying to do. And when you're a general notary person and you're out there taking care of it, remember, it's not so much the notarization as your business, it's the accessibility you're providing. And that's what the value is. So then think about, why are they needing you? So I personally have never needed to charge that kind of money for a document, nor do I think there would ever be a situation. And I'll tell you what I do. When somebody asks me to go 30 or 40 miles for a document, I don't take that assignment. I find them a notary, one of my colleagues who is closer to them, who can do it for a reasonable rate.
Awesome, Laura. Thank you. Garrett says, what is the average? Well, we're going to skip right through the other fees. We get lots of those. This is too long and it's too loud for me, so I'm going to skip that one for right now. She says, what are these covenant homeowner agreement closings? They aren't refis. That's a repeat from last week. Carol, I think that's the one that stumped us.
Well, a covenant is an agreement that people make on property that often goes with the deed. Like if they make an agreement that it's going to be good for just a certain period of time, or there's certain restrictions on them. It gets really complicated, though. I've only had something to do with covenant agreements a couple of times in my life, but it's a restrictive thing that they place on the ownership of a property. Where'd he go?
Oh, looks like he's stuck inside. He's back.
I said what I had to say.
Okay, good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Debbie says, do you accept credit card payments, and do you have any recommendations on the best transaction processing companies? I know for my general notary work, I always use Square and Stripe. You guys use anything different?
I love Square. That's what we use for our business.
If you're on the call and you have different suggestions, please type them in the chat window so Debbie can see those. How much is too much when constructing your marketing materials, ads, flyers, services, territory certifications that doesn't appear to be taking yourself out of potential business. Okay, good question. So when do you know when to draw the line between learning and certifications and actual implementation and getting started? Carol, do you have any suggestions for somebody who might be like on that line between paralysis analysis or analysis paralysis?
Most people just spend what they can afford. And when they're new, they can't afford very much money. So you have to make what you have go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Again, from my perspective, dealing with people that are new to the business, they're not going to go out and spend $500 on marketing. There's a lot of things they can do, but it's expensive. They have to just figure out what's most important, what they're going to get the most out of.
Laura, how about you? Any suggestions maybe for somebody who's battling analysis paralysis and knowing what to get started with on marketing?
Well, I'm just thinking when I did it, I just went out there and started working, and I developed a lot of these things after I started getting jobs.
Right.
And my focus was on doing the work and then figuring out how can I get more people to ask me to do the work. So I started out not really having anything. I was just going out there as I got asked. And of course, it was easier in my day. We didn't have everything we did today. There weren't a lot of us. And so once one company got a hold of you, the jobs just started coming in. And I determined early on that, okay, these are the kinds of things that might be a good idea. And I did very, low entry, low barrier, low cost, magnets on my car, my business cards, going in for loan signings, going in to meet some of these clients that I was working for so that they would get to meet me and I could stand out from all the other names that are on the list. And then as I grew my business, then I started looking at, hiring outside people who could provide skills that I don't have, as in designing the website and designing brochures and other things that I did. And I just did one thing at a time. And I think that would be the other important thing is I didn't look at 5 or 6 different things. I just said, okay, I want to have a brochure. Let me work on that and then develop it and actually produce it and then have it. Okay, what else can I add to my collateral? I think if you look at too many things at the same time, you don't know where to start.
I think that's a really good point. And I think it's, I'll go back to the point I made earlier in the call too, is until you get a customer and perform a service, you don't have a business. So don't waste too much time in the beginning figuring it all out and making sure that all these ducks are in a row, because that moment just really never exists. The cool thing about this business is it's scalable. So you can start, your business card is really the only thing that I would say that you really need as a marketing piece, and you can grow into everything else. And when it comes to training and figuring out, the paralysis or the analysis paralysis stuff, pick one training and go with it. Start implementing it. Don't add another training on until you've already started implementing. Because knowledge without implementation it's worthless in your brain. You've got to put it into practice. Start making some money. Start building relationships. A lot of the best relationship building tools that you have, and this whole business is based on relationships, are free. You have your phone already. You have email. That was a starting point. If you have a little bit of a budget, you can buy some greeting cards, some thank you cards. Those thank you cards changed my whole business at a small fee. It was like $40 a month I spent on send out cards, and it changed my business. Those cards turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So that kind of stuff is real simple and easy to implement.
Yeah, I think it's more important for you to think about honing your skills and trying to get work with companies, developing those relationships that we talk about. There is one thing I'd like to add to that. We talk about business cards, and of course everybody has business cards. You need to have those. And I've said this before, you get these little magnetic backings. I think from Michael's is where we got them. And it's easy. You stick them on your cards yourself. And if you're going out to an area where you want to hand out cards, if you're doing general notary work or just to get your name out there, those cards are fabulous because nobody ever throws magnetic business cards away. I was on
That's
with a
true.
student one time telling her on the phone, and she says, "Oh my gosh," and this was just a few months ago. She said, "You're right. I'm right next to my refrigerator, and oh my goodness, I've got a dentist appointment in 2014." That was just last week, or a few months ago.
I love that, and it's so true. Those magnetic cards last forever.
Hmm.
All right, let's look at Wanda's question. Is it okay if both signers sign the affidavit of property value? You did state on the video that one would sign, that both weren't needed. So I know there's going to be some levels that maybe haven't seen an affidavit of property value yet, but some people have, and this is one that looks like it has 2 columns. There's 2 notarizations down at the bottom. Carol, can you address, is it a big deal if both co-signers sign on an affidavit of property value?
I've always had them both sign. I think only one is required, but I've always had both.
Laura,
We're
what do you-
talking about the affidavit of property value in Arizona, right? I mean, I don't know
Wanda's
about,
in Texas, and it looks just like
yeah.
one in Arizona. Yeah. Laura, what do you think? You're muted, Laura. Sorry.
Okay, so here's how I look at documents. I look to see who's supposed to be signing. And if there's both names there, I have both sign. And if they only have one name printed for me to sign, I just have that one person sign. And I just follow the instructions since I'm not the determiner of who's supposed to be signing. So that's pretty basic. If I had a question about it, of course, I would call, somebody for help with it. But I really let the documents tell me or instructions tell me, rather than me trying to decide is that the right thing to do.
Perfect. Second question from Wanda. Should the typed date on the note, the addendum to the closing agent instructions, and the acceptance of rights form reflect the date of the signing or the date the documents were prepared? Carol, what do you think?
Date the documents were prepared.
Laura, any additional feedback on that one?
No, nothing different.
That's pretty much all of those dates mean. The one thing that I'll just add in there, guys, is the date of the note can be a very big deal for people. So just make sure that it's not dated for a future date. It has to be dated on or before the date you're at the signing. J-Lo says, what I'm still a bit confused about is how you do the tax signings in general notary work. Would it be beneficial for me to run this business under my personal social security number or a business EIN? What is the difference between those two? What would some of the pros and cons be? Carol, I know this is something you're passionate about. You want to give a quick little rundown on it?
Well, it'll be really quick. I tell everybody, get an EIN number because you don't want to expose your social security number on all those W-9s that you're going to have to send to all these companies that you sign up for. You don't know who works for these companies. And to have your social security number out there and be vulnerable, that's number one for me. Regarding everything else, get some advice from people who know what they're doing. I don't. I'm not a tax consultant, attorney, advisor, so don't ask me.
Love it. Love it. And there's plenty of resources that will help you, whether it's just H&R Block or Liberty Tax, whatever it is, just get a little bit of feedback. A lot of times income is income, but as notaries, we do have some special exceptions that you want to definitely look into as well. And Carrie in the chat window refers you to nolo.com. They've got amazing resources for helping you start and grow your business. David says, how do you keep track of business cards? Can someone recommend an app for this? So that's a great question because I have stacks and stacks and stacks of business cards whenever I go to events like this or the event I was at this last weekend. I don't have a methodology down for it except for what Robbie Samuels recommended, where I fold the corners and I make notes on the business card so I can follow up later. That's the best I've got. Anybody else have any suggestions? Laura, are you any good at this?
I know, I'm just laughing. Carrie saying she has a freaking shoebox. Put them in. Right, Carrie. And I'm like Bill, I just have so many of them. I don't give out my business card as often because I have a feeling that it ends up in their shoebox. And when somebody wants my contact information, I say, pull out your phone and put notary and then my name. And now they'll know who I am and why they have me in their phone, and they've got my number right there. Our phones are really these supercomputers that can hold it. So anybody that I know I really want to have ongoing communication with, I stick them in my phone because I lose the cards. They're stuck to each other. I've thrown them away. I don't know, things change. So I love that. And actually myself, I always see if they prefer to just put me in their phone when they ask me for my card, and they're like, oh, what a great idea. And they just put notary as the first name and then notary Laura, and then they have the rest of my info.
Yeah, that makes it really easy to search by too, because they can just type in notary and you're going to be the first one to pop up.
Right.
Love it. Another question from David. Could anyone recommend a good 10 to 12 inch Chromebook tablet? Let's put that in the chat window if anybody has any suggestions on that. I don't have any for tablets. I like the HP laptops and the Lenovo laptops. David also says, question for Carol. When she was a title officer, were there any notaries that impressed her by the way they returned documents? What can we do to outshine our competition?
I'm embarrassed to answer this. First of all, I was an escrow officer and then I was an escrow manager. In the state of California, we have independent escrow companies. And at the end of my career, the last years of my career, I was an escrow manager. I ran 2 different companies. So I was never in title. I worked with title. Title officers worked with me in conjunction with the properties that we had. So notaries, mobile notaries, did not exist back then. And I don't know how many, I know, Laura, you were right at the beginning, right? We both were.
Yeah.
People need to know this. In 2000, it was right at the end of 1999 and the beginning of 2000. In California, properties absolutely exploded. There was so much work that I, as an escrow officer, and in our office, you got to the point where you couldn't handle all of the work. Title companies were overrun by signings, and they couldn't handle them. We always did them in-house. I had either my assistants do them or I did my signings. But it became ridiculous in those last years of 90s. So people started figuring that out, and all of a sudden the mobile notaries were born. And that's when you got paid hundreds of dollars to go out. I've heard of people being flown. I just heard a story about somebody being flown somewhere to go do a signing and paid hundreds of dollars. And Laura, do you remember those days? Oh, you're muted. Yeah, but that's the way it was back then. So regarding notaries coming into my office, it didn't happen. When I was doing it, I was the notary and my assistants were the notaries. Does that help? Didn't give you anything, did it?
Well, I think
I had to mute because there was a lot of noise on my end. But I just want to say, when I was a little bit after that, I was in the early 2000s. And I have to say, if I could answer the phone, I had the job. And they didn't really care about anything else after that.
Breathing.
Back and then, I didn't print anything. Everything was overnighted to me. I didn't print anything. E-docs was like the new thing in 2000, 4 or 5, somewhere around there. That was kind of a new deal.
Yeah, we used to get our FedEx packages in the morning, go out in the afternoon, get it signed, return it back to FedEx. We never had to worry about printing or anything. It was great.
Okay, quiet.
Sorry, yeah. So I've got some background noise here.
Because somebody came to my house and my dogs went berserk. But I think that if you are in a position of returning documents because it's within your area and it's something you can do and they appreciate that, I think that's a great thing to do. But that might not be the only way in which you can extend that relationship and show them how committed you are to their success.
Absolutely. It just comes down, I think, Laura, you brought up this topic even in your group of how to add value to your relationships. And dropping documents and picking documents up can add value if your client appreciates it. It definitely creates face time for you so you can build those relationships and strengthen bonds. So I love that part, but there's lots of other ways. If you're not local, there's other ways, other things you can do, just like what we talked about earlier, the follow-up emails, the greeting cards, the thank you cards, that kind of stuff. All that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think we're about that time, aren't we?
Oh, yes, we are. Perfect. This is a perfect place to stop, guys. Thank you so much. Carol, thank you for spending so much time with us. Laura, I'm glad Minnie Mouse voice went away and you were able to participate. Guys, thank you so much for growing yourself and your business on a Tuesday morning. We'll catch you next week.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week.